Hey everybody, it's PartyElite with another online battle today. This time I take the Dark Elves to the field against the High Elves of Bagel. We begin as always with talk of composition and deployment, but this time we do it while paused because as you can see, both sides get pretty aggressive pretty quickly. Let's start with my Dark Elves. As you can see, Malekith is in charge atop Seraphon, and the front line consists of these 3 units of Bleak Swords in the middle, and a unit of Harganeth Executioners on either end, hoping to pin central forces down and come in with flanking maneuvers or rear charges if the opportunity presents itself. Then we've got Dread Spears on either flank and in the center, able to dive in and support in the center if necessary, or of course, pull out to the side or prevent any flanking maneuvers from enemy large units. And finally, the Witch Elves over here, as a part of my main forces, are able to dive in and inflict that Madness of Cain wherever I'd like to see it put in. Up front, we've got some clever bits going on here. I've got 3 units of Dark Riders with repeater crossbows. These guys are up front here because I will always be outranged by High Elf archers, so might as well close that gap and try and get some shots in response. Early damage to the archers, force them to fall back as my units approach perhaps, and just prevent that early fire. And to the side over here, hidden in these trees, or shrubs I guess, we've got 3 units of Dark Riders, 2 with shields, again staying protected from enemy range support. So that's what I've got going on, trying to be pretty aggressive here. And on the other side of the field, the High Elves are trying some interesting things as well. We've got Tyrion in charge on foot, and we've got a noble on the field as well, atop a horse. Anti-large and armor-piercing will work relatively well against someone like Malekith. The front line consists of 3 units of spearmen, and right behind them we've got these checkerboarded white lines of Shrace able to dive into the gaps over here and get involved, or of course push in for rear and flanking maneuvers, again if the opportunity presents itself. Then we do have the Swordmasters of Hoeth over here, able to pick and choose where they'd like to get involved and potentially provide support to a flank that's falling apart, or if the center begins to melt away. Then we've got 3 units of archers back here, able to fire away right from the start, of course, because I have Vanguard deployed some units, and then the Phoenix Guard. And these guys are very threatening, especially to a unit like Malekith. All the way off to the side over here, as you already saw, we've got 2 units, 1 of Illyrian Reavers and 1 of Silver Helms. And these guys outclass my cavalry by far. So we were both thinking the same thing, pushing for a flanking opportunity, but these guys are going to have, well, they're going to have a bit of a meeting. So let's take a look at how this all breaks down. Right away, you'll see my Dark Riders with the repeater crossbows open fire. Unfortunately, poor target selection from myself over here. I focus in on these spearmen. They have silver shields, so that's not going to do much, but I am able to pull back and dodge all of that range support, doing just a touch of damage to that rightmost unit there. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see we've got charges going down already, diving in to these Illyrian Reavers, and we also have the Silver Helms coming in, so I'll try to dodge them, and come in from the rear, you'll see just a little bit of micromanagement, and I push these guys in to support that left situation there, because my cavalry is going to fall apart quite readily. So try to get that range support in there, and you'll see they're doing a touch of damage, mainly to morale rather than health, but of course they are armor-piercing shots, so they will start doing a fair bit of damage there to scare these guys off. Malekith, meanwhile, over here, pushing forward, creeping forward, looking for an opportunity as these archers creep forward, looking to fire away and cause as much damage as possible as I try to close that gap. And off to the left over here, as Malekith is creeping forward towards these archers, take a look at what's going on. We've got 1 unit over here of Dark Riders. They haven't routed, but I've pulled them away. I'm wasting my time and energy in that engagement, so I want to pull these guys away because they have a different duty to perform. They were brought in to shut down enemy range support. They can't do that if they're routing. Meanwhile, we've got these committed Illyrian Reavers able to kill and slaughter my Dark Riders, but all that range support is forcing these guys to give up on the fight. Their health has dropped, their morale is extremely low, they're wavering. But we do have this unit of Silver Helms still at more or less full health, coming in for that side charge, doing a lot of morale damage to my own unit. So a lot of intensity going on over there, and while that's happening and the micromanagement over there is going on, Malekith creeps up to the side there, gets his angles lined up, and pops his breath into these archers, and look at how much hurt is being done there. These guys do not want to stick around and fight. Their morale drops instantaneously, they're wavering, their health has dropped, and I send Malekith in for a coup de grace, just trying to get a little bit of damage in there, and you'll see terror kicks in. All of these archers are falling back, and so that range support has been taken care of in one way or another. Meanwhile, I've got these Dark Riders over here pushing in as well, trying to get a charge into the archers over here, and you'll see these spearmen are sent in to respond, so I get a little bit of a charge going on. Some damage done there, but more or less right away I turn these guys around in the nick of time and save them from these spearmen. And over here the noble as well, giving chase to Malekith. Not a bad call. Again, armor-piercing anti-large. Let's try to take care of Malekith early on. Unfortunately, he takes to the air. The Witch Elves, meanwhile, are the focus of the enemy's attention. A lot of range fire coming in. These guys are going to fall apart. They're not going to have a good time, these ladies. And at the same time, I've got Blade Wind going down on the spearmen over here, doing a great deal of hurt. Now, that might not be the best cast. Sometimes it's best to wait a while until the enemy clumps up, and then you can get something like the Blade Wind going on and cause a great deal of damage. But I wanted to get Murderous Prowess as soon as possible, and you'll see as lines are slowly starting to clash, as those Witch Elves dive in and inflict the Madness of Cain, and as these guys are all pushing in, you'll see I'm almost at half bar already for that Murderous Prowess, so I'm pretty happy with how that went, and I did a fair bit of damage as well, and now the front lines do collide, and there we are at half point there for Murderous Prowess. I just need to find another opportunity to cause a fair bit of damage, and you'll see Malekith once again lining himself up, getting to the side of this wonderfully long line of Swordmasters of Hoeth. I see them as one of the more threatening units on the field. They are anti-infantry and armor-piercing, so a little bit of breath. Bad breath from Seraphon does a great deal of hurt here once more because of that perfect angle, dropping these guys to about half health. At the back here, at the same time, you'll see that Dark Rider unit that was pulled away earlier is now able to charge into these archers again, making sure that range support does not take place, and over here, these Hargoneth Executioners turn around for a rear charge into the Spearmen, while those Dark Riders with their repeater crossbows fire away at these archers. I could have sent them in for a charge and done a bit more damage there and interrupted their fire, but I was satisfied with how much damage I was getting done, while over here you'll see Gaze of Malice goes down, trying to hurt some of these archers over here. We do have that ability from Tyrion, I forget the name right now, but causing a touch of damage to my Hargoneth Executioners, but in comes Malekith, diving in, doing a fair bit of morale and physical damage, of course, and you'll see in just a moment's time these Swordmasters of Hoeth, who have suffered a fair bit of damage in just a little bit of time, decide to give up. They are terrified off the field, they turn around and they try to leave as the Phoenix Guard here push in, and I get another wonderful use of Blade Wind, and that kicks off Murderous Prowess, and in some cases Murderous Mastery, but unfortunately for me, those Witch Elves have been damaged and they're all the way back here, so that Murderous Mastery is going to be wasted, but Murderous Prowess is active right now, and you can see the High Elves are going to start falling apart, and I'm going to confidently now push in for melee engagements wherever I can. Back here, you'll see these Dark Riders with shields. I hesitate to send them into these Illyrian Reavers, but I have to pay attention to these Silver Helms as they're closing the gap, and you'll notice my Spearmen there, my Dread Spears off to the left there, stayed in that position, as the last place I saw those cavalry units was off in the trees over here. I didn't want to pull them into an engagement elsewhere because I wanted to be prepared for a cavalry advance off to the side. You'll see, though, at the same time, we've got some shatters going down across the field. Archers have completely been taken care of, and now these Dark Riders with the repeater crossbows are able to fire into these white lines of Shrace. Again, these guys very quickly now giving up under all of that pressure, very quick to surrender, and over here I've got my Dark Riders with the repeater crossbows looking for an avenue of escape as these Silver Helms close the gap, able to catch these Dark Riders here, so a little unfortunate for those guys, but they're able to creep away ultimately, and as the Dread Spears here push forward, I turn these repeater crossbows around and just fire away at the Silver Helms, too busy dealing with that half a unit that's left over there. These guys should have been pinging back and forth against some of my Hargoneth Executioners, or disengaging and pushing into these guys, doing something, but unfortunately they're sitting there looking pretty, I have to say, taking a lot of shots, and in comes a charge from my Dark Riders with shields as well, not looking to do damage because they're outclassed, but again doing morale damage, and in come the Dread Spears as well, since these guys are pinned in place. That Anti-Large is going to come in and do a fair bit of work, while the Noble over here is doing a good job against my Dark Riders, just dropping them. Again, armor-piercing Anti-Large doing very well over there, heavily armored as well, and also dealing some fair damage to the Bleak Swords, very capable of taking care of these guys. Tyrion, in the meanwhile, over here using Feint and Riposte to try and stay alive against these Hargoneth Executioners, doing quite well. The Phoenix Guard as well providing assistance. They have martial mastery, so they have extremely large boosts to their capabilities as their health stays above 50%. And off in the distance here, you'll see Malekith was chasing after various units, just making sure that these rallying units decide to rout instead, potentially shatter. And over here as well, we've got the White Lions of Shrace being bogged down by the Witch Elves as well as the Bleak Swords, but these are all minor units, mostly taken care of already. Malekith, though, has to get involved in this central situation where Tyrion is doing a lot of work, the Noble is also doing a lot of work. In comes another Blade Wind, and this one works wonderfully, dropping those Phoenix Guard below half health, getting rid of their martial mastery, and just swerving through, doing a great deal of damage to health and morale. And in comes that rear charge as well from these Dark Riders with repeater crossbows. Ultimately, I decide not to charge in, a little worried about the Phoenix Guard anti-large capability, but now that I try to get some range shots in, you'll see they insist on getting involved in melee. A little weird there. Maybe a fetish of theirs, who knows. But Malekith, you'll see over here, dives into the Noble, gets a fair bit of damage done there, despite stand your ground, trying to keep these guys alive. You'll see that Noble is in a tight spot, and now all that range support going in against Tyrion, hoping to drop leadership once and for all and take care of the High Elf army. You'll see we've got some of these units rallying over here. My Dread Spears off in the distance there, being wasted, chasing after a shattered unit of Silver Helms, now trying to pull them back here, and again pulling these Dark Riders off to the side, trying to keep them safe, but no need to worry as the High Elves surrender. A Pyrrhic victory for my Dark Elves. Now, my opponent certainly had some interesting thinking here, hoping to use his cavalry as rear charging assistance when the time came to help and break my front lines. Fortunately, I had a similar thought, chasing after archers, and though my cavalry melted away, I was able to retreat and keep them alive for long enough to perform their duties. My Dark Riders with repeater crossbows performed admirably as well, providing support where needed and bringing morale damage to the enemy. And with some great breaths from the dragon, key units were removed from the field before they got any work in, giving me a somewhat easy path to victory. This battle was won, I think, because I was willing to take many cheap units that allowed me to keep the enemy's clever attempts occupied. If I'd taken a smaller, higher tier army, it's very possible that the Silver Helms and the Illyrian Reavers would have come in for rear charges, ping-ponged back and forth, and just eliminated my army. And that's why I wanted to cast this one. I feel like the cheap, wide lines worked out for the Dark Elves today. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content. Online battles, Total Breakdown continue to bring you tactical analysis whenever possible. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to meeting you on the battlefield.